Hi, and welcome back to Alignment by Tuva. If you listened to last week's episode, you now know something that many people never really learn, that your gut isn't just digesting food, but it has its own nervous system. It literally communicates with your brain, and it responds to stress, and it reacts to emotions. And maybe as you moved through your week since the last episode released, you started noticing things a little differently. Maybe you noticed, maybe you paid attention to that stomach tightening a little bit before something stressful, or you noticed your appetite was shifting when pressure increased, or just that subtle tension in your gut when something felt a little bit uncertain. And not because something was wrong, but because your body was communicating with you. And if you are just joining today, you're still in the right place. You can jump back and listen to the previous episode to get a little bit more background information of what the gut's nervous system actually is about, because today we're diving into how to work with it. Because today is really about the relationship. Last week covered the information and how you understand how the gut works, but today is really about learning how to listen to it and how to work with it. And yeah, we do not want to feel confused by it or frustrated with it or disconnected with it anymore. So we're gonna dig deep, because something I see happen all the time is that people start noticing their gut symptoms and their first instinct is to control them, to fix them, and to silence them, and to push through them, and to force a digestion, to ignore discomfort, or overriding what the body is signaling. And really opposite of not caring about your body. But this is because people feel like something is wrong, right? And you want to fix what's wrong. Like, you think that the gut is the problem or the symptoms are your enemy. But what if I tell you that the gut is not the problem? The gut is the messenger. And those sensations that you feel, that tightness, the heaviness, the discomfort, the loss of appetite, the sudden nausea, the bloating, the anxiety, like, what if those aren't random failures? What if I tell you that those things are signals, those things are information, and it is communication? It is your body trying to get your attention, to protect you. Because the truth is that most people, they try to control their gut. They rush their meals, they eat while they're stressed, they push through any tension and ignore that fatigue, and then feel confused when digestion feels off. But the gut doesn't respond well to force. It doesn't respond well to pressure. It doesn't respond well at all to urgency. What it responds to is safety. It responds to rhythm. And it responds to signals that say, it is okay to slow down now. It is safe to receive, and it is safe to digest. And this is where today's episode becomes important, because last week we built that understanding. We now know what the nervous system of the gut is. And today we build relationship. We build relationship with your body, with your gut, and with the signals that it sends every single day. Your gut does not need control. It needs communication. It doesn't need perfection. It doesn't need you to have strict routines. It doesn't need you to force anything. What it needs is communication, listening, responding, adjusting, learning. Because once you begin to understand and see your gut this way, something starts to change, and you stop seeing all those symptoms as interruptions and you start seeing them as signals. So when you see them as signals, you stop fighting your body and you begin cooperating with it. And that is what today is about. Today is about learning to respond and learning how to support intelligence that already exists inside your body. So just before we start to talk about what to do, before we talk about any regulation tool or any breathing techniques, any kind of support, we need to start somewhere that I feel is more important, which is recognition. Because you cannot support what you do not understand, and you cannot respond wisely if every sensation feels confusing or unpredictable. So one of the biggest misunderstandings people have about their gut is assuming that every sensation means the same thing. That discomfort always means that something is wrong, or that tension always means something is failing, or that change in appetite always means that something is broken inside of you. But your gut doesn't have only one signal. It has many signals, and each one, it means something slightly different. So what I want to give you now is a very simple way to recognize these core patterns that your gut moves through. And these are patterns that you have probably felt like in your everyday life, even if you are not having the language yet or have had the language. So the first signal is contraction. You probably felt your body contract. And this is one most people recognize first, that contraction. So this is when the gut feels tight, it feels held, it feels closed, and sometimes knotted, sometimes tense in a way that feels hard to ignore. You might feel this as a tight stomach before something stressful is about to happen, or something stressful starts appearing and you feel that tightness, or a knot forming before a difficult conversation, or a sense of pressure in your abdomen when you are under pressure or when you're rushing, or just that feeling of being slightly closed off. And this type of signal that often shows up when your nervous system is activated, when your body senses pressure and urgency, threat, even emotional threat, expectations, responsibility, something that requires readiness. And many people, they do not even realize that they're holding tension here because it's so normal. It's like their everyday life. So they just continue the day with working, talking, moving, while their stomach stays slightly tight all along in the background, like almost like their body is bracing and waiting and preparing. That is contraction. And it is not failure, it is only a signal. And the second signal is shutdown. And this is when the gut doesn't feel tight, but it feels heavy, like slow and disconnected and just flat. And you might notice this as loss of hunger. Maybe you feel all of a sudden that food feels uninteresting or even unpleasant, or a sense that your digestion feels sluggish, or like your body feels sluggish, like you have this heaviness in your stomach, even without any tension there. And sometimes this also comes with fatigue, like slowness, and a sense that your body feels less responsive and less energized, and you almost feel withdrawn. And this often happens when your system shifts into conversation, not activation. This is protection through your body literally slowing down. So when the body decides, we don't have enough capacity right now, what it does, instead of pushing forward, it pulls back and it reduces activity and it conserves your energy. So if you've ever had periods where your appetite just disappeared or your digestion felt unusually slow, like especially during stressful seasons, I assume you've likely felt this pattern before. And the third signal is flow. And this is a state many people do not notice. And this is when the gut actually feels neutral and warm and responsive. It is not tight, it is not heavy. The gut is just steady and present. And this signal you might notice as hunger just coming back naturally, and digestion feeling smooth, and your stomach just feels calm, like there is no tension and no heaviness. And this state usually happens when your nervous system feels safe, and when your body senses stability, and when pressure decreases, and when your system feels supportive enough to digest. So maybe this seems obvious, but this is where digestion tends to work best. So not when you are rushed, not when you are tense, not when you are depleted, but when your system feels safe enough to shift into the restoration. But now here's the important part. What you do is that you move between these states all the time throughout the day. Like Not once, not occasionally, repeatedly. You might feel contraction before a meeting, you might feel shutdown after an exhausting day, and then you feel that flow when you sit down to a calm, relaxed meal. And all of that can take place in one day. So none of these are permanent states, they're shifts, like movements, responses. And the moment you begin to recognize these patterns, you stop reacting blindly and you start noticing, you start naming, and you actually understand. Because your gut does not speak in sentences. It does not explain itself in words. It does not tell stories. Your gut does not speak words. It speaks sensation, tightness, heaviness, ease, movement, stillness, signals. Always signals. And once you learn to read those signals, you stop guessing, you stop assuming, and you stop fighting sensations that you don't even understand. And instead, you begin to listen. You begin to listen with curiosity, with patience, with attention. So now that you know how to recognize your gut's signals, I want to talk about the next steps. Because recognition is powerful, but what really changes things is what you do next. And this is where I want to challenge many people's beliefs. Because most people, they think digestion depends on food, depends on what you eat, when you eat, and how healthy the meal is. And yes, food matters. Of course it does. But there is something even more foundational than food, which is your nervous system state. Not just what you eat, but how your body feels when you eat it. Because the truth that surprises so many people is that digestion doesn't start when food enters your mouth. Digestion starts when your body feels safe enough to receive. So if your body does not feel safe, digestion does not work the same way. It doesn't work as efficiently and as smoothly. Sometimes it barely works at all. And if you really think about your own life, you will probably recognize this. How often do you eat while standing, while scrolling, while doing something else, rushing, like thinking about the next task, you're answering messages, you're just running through your to-do list in your head, like eating quickly just to get it over with, and not because you're hungry, but because you're busy, you're making yourself busy. I see this all the time. And honestly, I've done it myself. I've been eating while I've been distracted. I've been eating while I felt tense. I've been eating while my shoulders were tight and my mind was somewhere else. And I was also wondering why my digestion didn't feel great and why my meals sometimes just felt heavy or why my stomach felt tight instead of relaxed and I was bloated. But once you understand the nervous system, once I started to understand the nervous system, this started to make sense because digestion requires a specific state, a safety state, not urgency, not pressure, absolutely not multitasking. What it needs is safety. Your body digests best when it feels safe enough to shift into restoration. And that state, the one that supports digestion, it is called the parasympathetic state. But you don't need to remember that name. You just need to understand the feeling. It is a state where your body slows down slightly, where your breath deepens, and where your muscle softens, and where your system moves from doing to receiving. This is where I wanted to introduce something very simple. Something I will just name to the safety before eating practice. This is not about perfect eating. It is not about strict routines. This is just a small shift before your first bite. And here's what it looks like. I want you to imagine yourself doing this. Not someday, but today. Step 1 is to pause before eating. Doesn't have to be long. Doesn't have to be traumatic, just little moments. So before you take the first bite, before you rush into the meal, before your body stays in that go mode, just pause. Even 5 seconds matters because that pause that tells your nervous system that we are transitioning. We're not rushing, we're not reacting. Now we're shifting. And step 2 is taking one slow inhale and one long exhale. Not 10 breaths, not a full meditation. This is just one intentional breath, and especially that long exhale, because the long exhale that tells your nervous system that it is safe to soften now. It gives the signals to your body to begin to relax and to begin preparing for digestion. 3 is actually noticing your posture. And this one surprises many people because many of us eat while we're hunched, or like shoulders lifted even. Maybe the jaw is tight or body still holding tension from the day. That is completely normal. So before you eat, just drop your shoulders slightly, relax your jaw, and let your body soften just a little bit. Just enough to send a signal that we are not under threat right now. Step 4 is to begin eating slowly. And not painfully slow, not forced slow, just slightly slower than usual. Give your body time to recognize what is happening. Give your nervous system time to shift from urgency into receiving. And why this matters is because digestion depends on nervous system state. So if your body feels rushed, it will digest differently. And if your body feels tense, it will digest differently. And if your body feels unsafe, it protects before it digests. Always. That is survival biology. You do not digest best when you eat fast. You digest best when you feel safe. So this is why this practice matters. Not because it fixes everything overnight, because it doesn't, but because it changes the conditions your gut is working under. And instead of forcing digestion, you actually support it. And instead of rushing your body, what you're doing here is signaling safety, and instead of overriding your nervous system, you cooperate with it. And this is the shift that I want you to carry with you this week. So before your next meal, pause. Take one breath. Relax your shoulders. Then begin eating. There's also another tool that I want to share that might be even more powerful, because you carry this with you everywhere. You do not need equipment, and you do not need any preparation here. You don't need perfect environments. All you need is your breath. And here's something I want you to just take in, that your breath is not just about oxygen. It is one of the fastest ways to change how your nervous system behaves. And because your gut is directly connected to your nervous system, your breath becomes one of the fastest ways to influence your gut. Think about what happens when you're stressed. Your breathing changes without you even noticing it. It becomes shallow, it becomes short, comes up high in the chest, almost like your body is preparing to react. And when that happens, your gut feels it. So when that happens, digestion slows and muscles tighten, and that knot in the stomach appears. So you see, this is not because something wrong with the gut, but this is because the nervous system shifted. But that shift can go into the other direction as well. So you can use your breath to tell your nervous system, it is safe now. And when the nervous system hears that sentence or that message, your gut begins to soften. So instead of giving you 5 different breathing techniques and overwhelming you, I just want to give you one simple pattern that works because of how your nervous system is built. It is called extended exhale breathing, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You make your exhale slightly longer than your inhale, just a little bit longer. When your exhale becomes longer, it activates something called the vagus nerve. And you don't have to remember that name either, but just remember what it does. And what it does, it tells your nervous system, we can soften now. And when your nervous system softens, your gut begins to relax and your muscles release, and digestion becomes easier and tension decreases. And see, this is not because you forced it, right? This is because you signaled safety. We can try it now. Take one slow inhale through your nose. Not big, not dramatic. And then exhale slowly out through your mouth or out through your nose. And just let the exhale be a little longer than the inhale. Like you're letting the air fall out gently, not pushing it, just releasing. And one more time, you inhale all the way up through your nose, slow and steady. and exhale longer. And let the shoulders soften a little. Let the jaw unclench. And let the stomach feel like it can drop just slightly. And repeat this 4 or 5 times just to give your nervous system a signal. Just to give it a different message. A message that says, you do not have to brace right now. And this is where this becomes incredibly practical, because this isn't something you only do in calm moments. This is something you use in real life, in ordinary moments, in stressful moments, in the middle of your day. Before your meals, when your stomach is already a little bit tired, instead of sitting down and remaining tense, take 1 or 2 slow breaths first and let your exhale lengthen. Let your body shift before the first bite. Also during stress, when pressure starts to build and when your stomach starts tightening without even noticing, that is your moment. That is your moment to breathe differently just once, maybe twice. Or when your stomach tightens unexpectedly, that familiar knot, that sudden discomfort, instead of immediately rushing and assuming something is wrong or grabbing a pill, pause. Take 1 slow inhale and 1 longer exhale and just notice what happens. Even when nausea appears, and especially when stress-related nausea shows up, before reaching for any solution, start with breath. Because breath is often the first lever your nervous system understands. When you breathe this way, you are not forcing your body, you are communicating with it, and you're sending signals and you're offering it reassurance and creating space. Your breath is one of the fastest ways to talk to your gut physiologically. So every inhale, every exhale is a message traveling through your nervous system into your body, into your guts. And the more often you use your breath intentionally, the more your gut begins to trust those signals. Another thing that your gut responds to is rhythm. Your gut loves rhythm, and rhythm is not perfection. It is not strict schedules. Rhythm is predictability, patterns that repeat often enough for your body to recognize what is coming next. Because to your nervous system, predictability feels like safety, and safety is what allows digestion to work the way it is meant to. Think about it this way, that your gut, it is constantly trying to anticipate what is about to happen, not just what you are going to eat, but when you eat, when you rest, when you move, when you slow down. It is literally always preparing. It is always adjusting. It is always predicting. So when life becomes very unpredictable, your gut feels that, even if you do not consciously notice it. So if you're someone who eats at widely different times every day, like breakfast one day, no breakfast the other day, lunch at noon one day, and then you eat at 4 p.m. the next day, or late dinner some nights, skip meals on other nights, yeah, from the outside, maybe just feels like, yeah, that is how I do it. I'm busy, I'm flexible. But from your gut's perspective, it is confusing and it is uncertain, and uncertainty creates stress signals. Or also, if you're skipping meals entirely, and not because you are intentionally fasting, but because you are busy and you're rushing, you're pushing through your hunger, and you're ignoring the signals that your body is sending. Maybe at first, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but over time, your nervous system starts reading that pattern as unpredictability, as inconsistency, and a lack of rhythm. And that lack of rhythm can feel stressful to the body, even if your mind thinks that you are just being productive and you don't have time to eat. Yeah. And then there is constant rushing. And this shows up for so many people, like eating quickly, moving quickly, thinking quickly, like the breath, like always on to the next thing, like meals squeezed into tight spaces, like really no pauses. You're eating between the tasks, or you're not having a real transition between activities. You're just in constant movement, constant pressure, constant urgency. And when the pace of your life feels rushed, your gut feels that pace too. It feels it physically. It feels through muscle tension, through breath patterns, through nervous system activation. And your digestion never gets the signals that it is safe. So this is why rhythm is powerful, because rhythm, that might look like eating around similar times most days and just consistently enough that your body begins to recognize the pattern. And rhythm might look like just eating around the same times most days, like just consistently enough that your body actually starts to recognize a pattern. Or sleeping at roughly the same time most nights, like maybe also waking at a predictable hour when possible, or creating small repeatable transitions in your day. Having those small moments when your body learns that this happens now, this comes next, and this is familiar. Because the nervous system loves familiarity and it relaxes into familiarity. Predictability actually feels like safety for your nervous system, and safety that improves digestion. So this is not about creating those perfect routines, and it is not about creating patterns. Now, there is one more skill that I want to talk about, and this one might be the most calming of them all, because once people start learning about the gut, once people begin noticing all those sensations going on there, and you start recognizing your patterns and understanding your signals, that is when something interesting can also begin to happen, because you start to pay attention, which is amazing. It is so good. But sometimes what you do is to pay a little bit too much attention. So you start noticing every sensation, every shift, every small change, and suddenly every tight feeling feels like a problem. Every digestive change feels like, yeah, this is something off. Or every sensation feels like something that needs to be fixed immediately. But not every symptom is an emergency. Not every sensation needs immediate action. And not every gut signal means something is wrong. And I love awareness. Awareness is powerful. But awareness without calm, that can turn into hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is stressful for the nervous system. And stress is actually what the gut responds to. So this is where I want to bring in a slightly different approach. And that is understanding. So before you jump to any conclusions, before you assume that something is wrong, pause and ask yourself a simple question: what changed today? Not yesterday, not last month. Today. Did stress increase? Did your pace feel faster than usual? Did you rush through your meals? Or did you sleep less than your body needed? Or did something else happen? Did something emotional happen? Because even small emotional shifts, that can affect the gut. So when you start to ask these kind of questions, instead of reacting immediately, you become curious and you begin looking for patterns and connections and causes, and you're not just focusing on the symptoms. Because often gut signals, they are responses. They are not random events, they are not failures, and they are not breakdowns. They are responses to what your nervous system experienced earlier that day, maybe earlier that week, or sometimes earlier that hour. When you slow down long enough to observe, instead of panic, you give your nervous system something incredibly valuable. You give it space to settle, space to regulate, space to adjust, and all without, because your gut is not trying to sabotage for you. It is not trying to make your life harder. What it does is that it is communicating, it is adjusting, it is responding to what it senses, responding to your pace, to your stress, to your rhythm, to your environment. Your symptoms, they are simply messages. I know many of us see them as enemies or interruptions or inconveniences, but they are messages. They are signals. It is information your body is sending you so you can understand what it needs. And the more calmly you listen to those messages, the more clearly those messages begin to make sense. And before we're closing today, I want to give you a small moment to try something with me, just wherever you are right now. And if you are driving or walking, that is completely fine. You can still do this in a very simple way. We're going to just do a small check-in with your body. So if it feels comfortable, place one hand on your stomach. And not because you have to, you don't have to, but touch, it helps your nervous system to notice. It helps your body to feel your attention. And if placing a hand here doesn't feel possible right now, just bring your awareness to your stomach. That is enough. Now take a slow inhale in through your nose if you can. And let your exhale be slightly longer, like you're just letting the air fall out gently. And let's do that again. You inhale slowly. And a longer exhale. And as you exhale, just let your jaw soften a little. Many of us hold tension there without realizing. Let your shoulders drop slightly. And now, just notice your stomach. Is there heaviness there? Is there any tightness? Is there warmth, movement? Or maybe there is nothing noticeable at all, and that is okay. And ask yourself one simple question. Has anything shifted, even slightly? Maybe your stomach feels a little bit softer. Maybe your breath feels deeper. Or maybe your shoulders feels less tight now. Or maybe nothing obvious changed. And that is okay too. Because what matters here is not perfection. It is awareness. It is the realization that your body responds to your attention, to your breath, and to those small signals. And that realization matters, because the more often you create moments like this, the more your gut begins to trust those signals, and the more your nervous system begins to recognize that safety is possible, softening is possible, and change is possible. So if you take one thing with you from today, let it be that you don't have to control your gut. You don't have to force it. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to treat it like a problem that needs fixing all the time. What your gut actually needs is support, attention, and patience. Because when you really think about it, everything that we have been talking about today comes back to relationship. It is learning to notice when your gut tightens, learning to pause before your meals, learning to breathe in a way that signals safety, and learning to create rhythm in your day. That is the work, because your gut, it doesn't expect perfection from you. It doesn't need you to be flawless in your routines, and it doesn't need rigid control. What it needs from you is communication. It needs you to signal that you're listening, you're noticing, and you are responding. And over time, that communication becomes safety, and safety becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes trust. And maybe the biggest shift of all is realizing that your gut is not working against you. It is working with you. It is trying to keep you regulated in a world that can sometimes feel a little bit too fast and a little bit too unpredictable. So, as you move through your day and the following days, I want you to remember that not every sensation needs fixing. Not every signal needs urgency. Sometimes your body just needs acknowledgement, a breath, a pause, a moment of listening. And the more you build that relationship, the less confusing your body begins to feel. So take what you learned today and make it small, make it doable. One pause before a meal, one slow breath when tension rises, and one moment of curiosity instead of panic. That is enough. And I am really glad you were here for this conversation, because The more we understand our bodies, the less alone we feel inside of them, and the more capable we become of supporting ourselves in ways that actually work. So as you move into the rest of your day, stay connected to what your body is telling you. Stay patient with the signals that you feel, and stay gentle with the process of learning. And as always, stay aligned, stay curious, and most important of all, stay true to yourself.